to... I guess I should do a formal introduction of what this video is, but I honestly have no script for this. This is very impromptu, throwing everything into the wind, whatever that phrase is. Anyways, hello. This is my top 10 of 2022. Since every YouTuber film guy does this, I guess why not I do it as well. I already have the list ready. I still haven't seen some films from this year. I have yet to see After Sun, The Quiet Girl, which was on the short list for the Oscars from Ireland, so I have to see that, but it's not available in America yet. Skinamarink, which has a wide release next week, and this BBC movie, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I haven't seen those. White Noise, I have not seen either, but other than that, I think my list is pretty set because I've been trying to catch up on everything for the past week, and none of them have really cracked into the top 10. I think my list is pretty final. What I'm going to do for this list is I'm going to do the top 10, why I liked it personally, I guess something I learned about it, and then something I didn't like about it, because not every film is perfect, and sometimes knowing the one thing that kind of irks you about a movie is the one thing you learned the most. So I'm just going to rattle those off as quick as possible, make this video as short as possible. We'll see how that goes with a top 10 list. Starting at number 10, I have RRR, which is probably the biggest movie to come out of India ever. I really don't know the history. Patrick Willems is another white guy that did a full video essay about it, but he has other people cite sources and offer cultural context. So this movie is on Netflix in Hindi. Don't watch it in Hindi. That's not the original language. I watched it in Portuguese on the biggest screen I could get, which actually I was fortunate enough to watch it in the movie theater at my university. So I saw it on the big screen, but it was on Netflix, so the compression was rough. And for the first half, we watched it in Hindi, which sucked. And then we switched it to Portuguese because the English parts were in English. So if you want to watch RRR, it's still not available in the original language anywhere here. Watch it on Netflix, I guess, not on your laptop, on your TV if you can, and put it on Portuguese. It's a weird thing, put it on Portuguese. That's the one thing that kind of irks me about this movie. I didn't see it in its intended format, which sucks. What I liked about it is just how crazy it is the whole time. It never gives up the bit, pretty much. It is cranked to 11 the entire time. It never stops. It is fully serious about what it's doing in the most absurd ways possible. And I guess something I learned, you can genre blend as much as you want, as long as you have fun with it and you take it seriously. This movie has 5 different genres in it. For 40 minutes, it's a rom-com out of a war epic action flick. It just suddenly is a rom-com. You can genre blend as much as you want, as long as you make sure it flows, and that's about it. My number 9 pick is Prey. And unlike RRR, I feel like a lot of people are talking about RRR. This movie is kind of unknown for a lot of people because it came out on Hulu. It deserved a cinema release in theaters. Again, that is my irk. That's the one thing I don't like about this movie. It deserved the big screen and it never got the chance. But it is basically a Predator movie where the Predator is facing off against a Comanche tribe, especially a Comanche woman that does not want to be the stay in the tribe and heal people or collect herbs and stuff. She wants to be one of the hunters, and the men in her tribe don't want her to branch out from her intended role. So it's you have that very personal, very universal concept of wanting to break out of the path that has been chosen for you, while it's also about Comanche Indians. So it's Name another movie that centers the perspective on like indigenous people. That's like a very special part of this movie, and I think it's directed by a Comanche woman. So it's very authentic and very personal, and you could feel it. Even though it's an action movie, that sense of culture and that sense of kind of like personal flair to it really shines. It's really good. And then it's a Predator movie. It's so good in every aspect that it is. I think it deserved a big, wide theatrical release. It didn't. It's on Hulu. But if you don't have Hulu Premium or Hulu Plus or whatever, if you watch Prey, no ads, ever. It just starts and ends with no breaks. So that's nice. One thing I learned, I guess, from this is, I already knew this, but it kind of solidified it. Action movies should not be just action movies. It has to have at least one extra thing in it. In the premise, too. Like, if you pitch this movie, it's a Predator movie. No, it's not just a Predator movie. It's a Predator movie where the Predator fights a Comanche tribe in, like, the 1600s or 1700s. I don't remember when it takes place, but it's like, that's in the premise. It's the root of the entire film is that extra. It's not just an action movie. You have to branch out somehow, and that is the way to do it. My number 8 pick for the year is everyone else's favorite, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I have a weird relationship with this movie because everyone won't stop talking about it. It's a great movie. It is so creative. It's so fun. It's my number 8 because, like a lot of movies this year, it's really long. It's not as long as a lot of movies on this list, but I kind of felt it in the end. I don't know if it was the epilogue or if it was like the third act. It builds and builds, stops for a bit, builds, stops for a bit, builds. It really kind of stumbled with the pacing in the end. Other than that, though, this movie is amazing. I guess just what I learned from this, creativity is key. It is the most important thing ever, because this movie is pure, raw imagination. It is so fun to see all the little quirks that every universe has, that every fight choreography has. Everything is just so fun and innovative, and it was on a small budget. It's the most profitable movie A24 has ever made. I think that's what that stat that they were saying was, but it's crazy that the Daniels had a studio that allowed them to make a movie this crazy, and it fit the market so well that word of mouth exploded. This movie is fantastic. I can't wait to rewatch it in maybe 3 years when I've forgotten everything about it and I've forgotten kind of the hype of it, so I can see it again with fresh eyes. My number 7 pick is The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves. This movie, most of why I like it so much is just the atmosphere of it. This is the most comic accurate Batman, but I myself do not care about that. I just like it because it is gothic, it is moody, it is serious. It doesn't pull any punches in its atmosphere. It is fully authentic in what it's trying to do. It's Seven and Zodiac. It is so David Fincher, it's kind of funny. Robert Pattinson was a surprise performance. I like him in a lot of things, The Lighthouse, Good Time. He was very surprising in this. One thing I didn't like about it was his Bruce Wayne aspect wasn't fleshed out enough. I do like that this movie isn't a Bruce Wayne movie, it's a Batman movie. But that side of him, I feel like the Matt Reeves did not want to address how Bruce Wayne acts or lives his billionaire playboy philanthropist life at all. They just kind of have him in 2 or 3 scenes where he's playing Bruce Wayne, and it's not enough. I needed more Bruce Wayne, just a bit, and maybe a little bit less Andy Serkis as Alfred. Like, one less scene. What I learned from this, sometimes recreating another director's aesthetic is not a bad thing. A lot of people make fun of Brian De Palma, who's one of my favorite filmmakers, for just copy-pasting Hitchcock in a lot of his movies. And that's kind of turned me off on watching some of his films. But after watching The Batman, where Matt Reeves just made a David Fincher movie, I'm kind of open to it. My number 6 pick is X by Ty West. And I'm ignoring the fact that Pearl exists. That is not an arc for this movie. That's just, Ty West made 2 movies this year. One of them is fantastic. It's awesome. It's hilarious. The other one is the prequel to the other one. X it's a slasher movie from the 70s, but made in 2022. It is so fun. It's so fun. I don't really have any complaints about this movie. It's exactly what it is. The scene transitions where it switches in between frames from one scene to another doesn't make any sense. I think it's like a film stock reference, but if you've seen Decision to Leave, that movie does scene transitions with frame changes way better than this movie. Just compare the two. It's insane how that movie gets it and this movie just does it as a gimmick and it doesn't work. What did I learn from this movie? If you're taking someone to an R-rated movie, let them know why it's rated R. I'll leave it at that. Here are the top 5. These have been flip-flopping left and right, so honestly, they're kind of interchangeable. This ranking is not like set in stone. Like I said, I still haven't even seen some movies this year. So these top 5, if you don't agree with these top 5, I mean, you're not wrong. It's just, these are the ones that I liked the most. Starting at number 5 is The Menu, which is probably the shortest movie on this list, which is why it's so high. But I love Anya Taylor-Joy. She's amazing. Ralph Fiennes, Nicholas Hoult. The cast is fantastic. It's so isolated. This movie's its own thing, and it's very contained, and it does exactly what it needs to do, and then gets out. Here's the movie, credits. It wastes no time at all. It is so efficient. That's the best part of this movie. It's efficient, but still emotional and tense. It gets every emotion and effect it needs to make in every scene without missing a beat. It was my biggest surprise of the year. I love this movie so much. Something I don't like about it, this is a common complaint for this movie, but by the end, everyone's still just sitting around waiting to die. It's kind of funny. I'll admit that criticism for this film. Everyone's just sitting around. They're not like, how should we escape? They haven't accepted it yet in the dialogue, but in their action, as in they're still at the table, they're still at their assigned seat, they just don't move. But other than that, this movie's so fun. And something to learn, going back to the efficiency of it, I really like looking at how efficient a film can keep its edit and make sure everything is done well. And it helps that, really, there's only one character in this movie that we follow. A lot of these other movies, there's like, it's an ensemble, or we're following a big epic. This year was the year of epic, big films that are 3 hours long. This film is very, like, 2015 or something. I don't know. It's like early 2010s. Bite-sized. We are following one character in a small location. Really well done, too. My number 4 pick is kind of why I'm emphasizing that this list is pretty loose. I have a lot of things to say about this film that are wrong, that I don't like, but it's more of just like the atmosphere and the effect it had on me. That's why it's top 4. My pick for number 4 is Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. Yeah, it's Steven Spielberg's childhood for almost 3 hours. I'll get the big complaint out of the way. There's like 4 different stages of his life in this one movie. We did not need all 4. I think when he was like a little kid, keep it as short as possible, chop it, keep it at the beginning as a cold open, and then, I don't know, there's like, when he's a little kid, when he's a Boy Scout in middle school or early high school, then when they move to California, and then he's like the only Jewish kid in a California high school. Best part of the movie. And then the epilogue, which is really good. And I think that's the perfect length. Does it need to be in there? No, not really. I think a lot of people are saying it's the most memorable part of the film, so maybe it does need to be there. But I think the best part of the movie is the high school in California. That whole him with his first girlfriend, him with the bullies. It's so, I don't know if it's like Rebel Without a Cause, but it's so 60s high school just ecosystem that I've seen in other movies, and it emulates those shot compositions and the dialogue. It masters it so well. It's like the best shot movie of the year, and that is saying something. This movie is so well made that the story can be forgiven. I guess that's something that I learned from this movie, is that not every aspect of a film has to be flawless for the movie itself to be good. Like, this movie is way too long, but I would love to watch it again because it's just, everything else is so good. The actors are great. The atmosphere is great. The shots are amazing. I just love living in that person's life, that I can forgive the fact that I stay there way too long. My number 3 pick, this one might be a lot of people's number ones, mainly because of the movie theater experience. I feel bad if you watch this movie on Paramount Plus because you are not getting the full thrill that is Top Gun Maverick. My personal experience of watching this in the theater, we went to the biggest screen we could. We didn't see it in IMAX. Went to the biggest screen we could, and when those jet engines like turned on and the exhaust blasted out, like my chair was shaking. It was so fun. It was so immersive and visceral. Oh, I loved it. And the way all the action scenes are shot are just fantastic. But the best part about watching that film in theaters was the platoon of 20 Navy vets right in front of me that definitely were on aircraft carriers the year the original Top Gun came out. Because we went to like a Flicks brew house where it's a microbrewery, a dinner place, and a movie theater in the same spot. So they don't show trailers. They show like clips from other movies to hype you for the one you're watching, which is really fun. So they would show clips from the original Top Gun, and all the Navy guys would like stand up and cheer whenever Meg Ryan showed up. It was awesome. It was so fun. Those guys, the movie's great on its own, but those guys just made the experience so wonderful. I love those guys. I'm never gonna see them again. They were fantastic. One complaint about the movie, I guess, would be, this is my dad's complaint. They say "talk to me, Goose" way too much. And one of my buddy's complaints, that I hate that he always says it, but it's true. The whole set piece is just Star Wars A New Hope. It's the trench run. I really hope that doesn't ruin the movie for you, because it doesn't ruin it for me. Top Gun Maverick is just 2.5 hours of Star Wars The Trench Run. It's not just that, but like, that's what the set piece kind of is. I hate that he says that every time. He says that every time. But no, that movie's fantastic. I know a bunch of guys that saw it in theaters 3 times and they never go to the movies. I guess something to learn is, it helps if you make a dad movie, you know? Like Ford v Ferrari, that's a dad movie. Everyone talks about Ford v Ferrari. Hacksaw Ridge is also one that Ford v Ferrari though, and Top Gun Maverick, those movies are so good, and they're dad movies, so you get everyone to show up. If you want ticket sales, make a dad movie. My number 2 is on Netflix, and I think you should watch it right now after this video is over, because it is so good. I think it's one of the best anti-war films ever made. Have I seen the original from 1930s? No. There are other anti-war movies like Jarhead. I haven't seen Jarhead. But out of all the war movies I've seen, this one makes war the most terrifying, the most brutal, the most disgusting, the one that chills you to the bone for at least a week after seeing it. And that is Netflix's All Quiet on the Western Front. This movie is long like every other movie on this list, but it's World War I. Like, you have to just follow these characters and just kind of the decay of Western Europe and watch every single one of them die a tragic death. And you know it's going to happen. And every time there's a little bit of hope, you think they're going to make it out. And the next scene you realize there was never a chance they were going to escape. The best scene is when they storm the French trenches and they take the trench. And I'm going to be honest, this is what I learned from this movie. I thought World War I, if you took the trenches on the front, you won the war. I have never been so wrong in my life. What follows is the most terrifying scene I've ever watched. It was brutal. And I was watching it on my little laptop in my dorm room with my headphones in, and I was like tunnel vision, watching all of these people die. The most gruesome deaths I've ever seen. It was an experience that I think if you can't stomach it, don't watch it. But if you think you're tough, or you think you know what war is, or you think about the heroism of the military, or just of nationalism or patriotism or whatever the heck, imperialism, if you think you understand any of that, watch this movie, because you're wrong. I know it's like a movie, and so it's not like a documentary, but it's the reaction you get from watching those scenes that bring out the truth. I need to say this. Every person I bumped into that's watched this movie has watched it in English. Watch it in German, please. Netflix allowed the filmmakers to make this film in the original language of the book. The 1930s All Quiet on the Western Front is in English. It's a movie in English that's talking about the German experiences of World War I, like 20 years after it happened. It's brutal and it's a big part of film history, but this adaptation of the book might be more authentic. I don't know for a fact, but the fact that German filmmakers adapted a German book in German and Netflix allowed them to do all that with a big budget, I feel like you have to respect the filmmakers and the creators and Netflix by watching it in German. One thing I didn't like about this movie. There's one scene I know that takes place in the 1930s All Quiet on the Western Front where it's a bunch of soldiers that are in this like bar, pub, cafe thing that they've taken over. The town's in ruin, but they're all sequestered there trying to cool down, sit down, have something to drink. And they have a French woman like being held hostage. And they force her onto the stage and they make her sing. And so she stands there, tears. And this is like one of the most brutal, violent movies ever made in black and white film history. And the most horrifying emotional scene is this French woman singing, I don't know if it's opera, but she's singing in French. And it brings all the soldiers to tears. It's such an emotional, heartbreaking scene. That is not in the 2022 version. I was so pissed when I was watching this movie and it ended and I thought, where's the French woman scene? That's like my favorite like little clips I watch sometimes. And they didn't remake it. That's my only complaint. Okay. Hefeweizen. All right, I'm gonna do the jerk move and talk about my honorable mentions before I talk about my favorite film of the year. That's how it is here. That's what I'm doing. I'm just gonna talk about them briefly. I'm not gonna do the 3 thing that I've been doing for every other film. I tried to do a top 15 list, so here are the 5 honorable mentions. Fire of Love, which is a Nat Geo documentary about 2 married volcanologists researching and taking video of volcano explosions. It's romantic, it's beautiful, kind of terrifying at points, and the ending is really sad. So if you want to watch that, go ahead, Fire of Love. A24's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Some people don't like it because it tries to do Gen Z kind of talk and they think they do it wrong. But also, these people are like rich, spoiled brats. So they kind of use buzzwords as like ammunition to win arguments. So I think it's actually pretty accurate. Pete Davidson is not in it for most of the movie, so you don't have to deal with him and his naked, non-tattoo body. Your brain's not used to it. Pete Davidson, you're fine. I have nothing against you. I actually think he's pretty funny in this movie. Yeah, that movie's just, I think that movie was really fun. Next up for honorable mentions is The Northmen. I don't really know what I think about The Northmen anymore, because when I saw it in theaters, it was so fun. I loved it because of its atmosphere. Like, it has immaculate vibes. That's like the only way I can describe this movie. But now that I've seen just a bunch of other movies since then, my relativity scale is kind of skewed. So I don't really have time to rewatch it and put it back onto the list. So it's an honorable mention. The Northmen is really good. It's basically a myth Vikings would tell back in Viking times, but made with professional cinema cameras and a cinema crew. Like, legit. It is the myth of Amleth. Like, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Next up is Banshees of Inisherin. Basically, everyone I've bumped into that has seen this movie hates it, because the characters are stupid, annoying, and just stubborn. But that's the point of the movie. So if you don't like the characters, the movie sucks. But as someone that minored in Irish for legit no reason, this movie's fantastic. It's one of the best shot movies of the year. It is just majestic, mainly because, you know, the location. It's really the location that's so beautiful. Like, you'll have Colin Farrell sitting on a stool outside the pub, crying or whatever, and then the background's just like rows and rows of cliffs and waves crashing and all this stuff, and it's just out of focus behind him. It's a headshot, and this majestic scenery is like behind him. It makes no sense. And it's just a movie where two dudes are like bickering at each other for legit no reason. I mean, there's a reason, and maybe there's another reason, but those reasons aren't the focus of the movie. It's the bickering. So people don't like it for that. I like it because it's very Irish. Oh, and also, if you do watch it, there's more than one Banshee. That's all I'm going to say. And my final honorary mention is the South Korean movie of the year, Decision to Leave. Park Chan-wook has so much fun with the camera work and the editing. Like I said earlier with X on the scene transitions, Park Chan-wook knocks it out of the water. There's some transitions in this movie that are just jaw-dropping. Oh, it's so good. This movie would have made it onto like top 3. Okay, it wouldn't have beaten Top Gun Maverick. It would have made it in the top 5 if there's a time jump in the middle, and it does not hold your hand in that time jump. It skips, and there are a lot of new characters to meet, and it just says deal with it. So it takes you about 20 minutes to catch up and realize what's going on, and by that point, the second mystery, it's a mystery detective movie. By that point, the second mystery is just kind of like not as good as the first, because the first is just so good. Second one's, you know who did it, so it's like, well, we're not going to waste time pretending that it's still a mystery. We know what's going on now. And the movie knows that, so it treats it like that, so the mystery's just not as good. And then it has one of the best movie endings of the past 10 years. Like, the ending to Decision to Leave is fantastic. It makes you want to scream at the TV in a good way. But that time jump in the middle is rough. So that knocked it down off the list, sadly. When it wins the Oscar, I'll eat my shoes. I don't know. What's the Bart Simpson, like, I'll eat my shorts? To waste no more time. You're a busy person, I'm sure. My favorite movie of the year is Jordan Peele's Nope. I watched it in the summer, and just it still sticks with me. Here's something that I learned from this movie, just to start. Sometimes hiding the whole point of the movie away from the premise so that you're surprised what the movie actually is in theaters, that is amazing. Like, I didn't know you could do that. There are so many things in this movie that I had no idea what was going on. There's like 3 shots at the beginning of the movie that immediately tell you, this is not a stupid UFO movie. And you just sit there like, oh, I had no idea what I just bought a ticket for. And the next 2 hours, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I never thought the movie would be like this. That's why it's my number 1. A complaint I have about the movie, because all the characters are working together as a team and as like a good team, like they have it thought out and they're working together. There's no bickering, nothing. And the siblings don't hate each other, which is nice to watch. It's legit nice to watch in a movie where it's like, this isn't a broken family. They have flaws. Like, they are flawed characters because every character is flawed. But they enjoy each other's company and they understand who the other is because they're siblings. They spent all their lives together. So it's very refreshing to watch that. But then when everything hits the fan in the end, by the way, when everything hits the fan in the end to like start the third act, like tense action scene or tense chase and horror sequence, it is really forced. It comes out of nowhere because the team is so together. Like, they don't have any personal vendetta against each other or no selfish reason to backstab everyone else to take the thing for themselves. They just work together so that when everything goes wrong, the team doesn't really feel in danger because they're still working together. It's a weird complaint, but I wasn't really scared that everyone was going to die. People do die, but I was like, yeah, but not everyone, because they're a team. They can just, distract what's going on. I cared for the characters. I really wanted them to succeed. They're very well-written characters. The stakes are very well established, well set up. I never really feared the stakes would go wrong. But other than that, this movie is fantastic. It is so well done. That subplot that I'm sure you have heard about, I'm going to leave it a mystery in case you haven't heard of it. Don't look it up. Just watch the movie, and when it shows up, like, sit in that moment. It's so good. It is so good. But yeah, those are my top 10, top 15 movies of the year. If anyone's like, where's Tar? I wasn't a huge fan of it. Or Avatar 2. The magic is wearing off on Avatar 2. I don't know. Yeah, and I will say it's kind of telling that the sequel to the biggest movie of all time didn't even make the top 15 of this year. Like, 2022 was a good year where every movie was way too long and huge and epic and, oh, look at the scale. But it was a great year for movies. I mean, like, even the ones that I don't really like Babylon, there are still sequences in Babylon that are fantastic. Oh my gosh. This was a surprisingly good year. Does it rival 2019? No. I think 2019 is still the best year, in my life at least, in cinema. But 2022 might be a close second. So yeah, that's all I have to say. If you disagree with me, put your list in the comments. I do read them because I don't do anything else. And yeah, I guess I'll see you next year.